What's up, guys, and welcome to our new channel, The Last Word Music. For all of you who came over from our Last Word Sports podcast, welcome. Glad to see you here. For all of you who are new here to The Last Word, feel free to check out our sports podcast. That will be linked somewhere in our channel. But today, guys, we will be reviewing Music to Be Murdered By, the new album from Eminem. The way album reviews will work on this channel is we will have a baseline of categories, and these categories will have certain point totals assigned to them. For example, lyricism will be worth 10 points, features will be worth 10 points, etc., etc. I'll go through those in a minute. And at the end of the album, we will add up all the point totals together, and we'll have a score out of 100. And that will be our baseline score for all albums, and that's how you can compare our reviews and our reactions to certain albums. But without further ado, let's get into it. Music to Be Murdered By Eminem. So the first category is lyricism, worth 10 points. And honestly, you get an Eminem album, you're gonna have some good lyricism. He's one of the best lyricists ever. So many punchlines, like in those kind of nights he had far too many corny punchlines for my liking, but you know what? It kept me entertained. It kept me laughing. There was this one, getting head in a bucket marshmallow, and that just, like, long pause and then marshmallow, and that just made me chuckle. Just stuff like that. You can always expect that with Eminem. He's got great storytelling ability, man. Like, you listen to Darkness, and you listen to Unaccommodating and Stepdad, and you just, like, you really feel for him, and you listen to, like, some of his love song, or not love song, but, like, toxic relationship songs on here. Like, he's got so many on this album. And you get bored of it after a while, but at the same time, it's like, you listen to him rap and you listen to him discuss, like, what he went through, and it kind of hits you, and it kind of, like, just the way his words intertwine with each other and the way he uses double entendres in those senses, it really impacts you. And also the double entendres. There was a verse in Darkness where he used a double entendre for, I think, a few good bars, maybe like 3-4 bars, where he was using a double entendre to compare shots as in alcohol shots and shots as in gunshots. And you know, at the end of the verse, he had an ad-lib that said double entendre, and that made me laugh. But at the same time, it just reminded me of how good his double entendres actually are. And so for lyricism, I gave him an 8 because it wasn't his best. We know he can do better. We've seen him do better. The corny punchlines, there was too many of them, but still kept me entertained enough to give me an 8. Okay, next one, flow of the album. This was my biggest problem with Music to Be Murdered By. It was an album that didn't know what it wanted to be. Like, the reason I loved his last album, Kamikaze, it's because he was taking shots at everybody, and that was the main focus of the album. It was F everybody, y'all don't know what you're talking about, I'm the greatest alive. And that's what I loved about Kamikaze, because it seemed like every single song he was taking shots at someone. But the flow of the album in this, it went from, like, a banger like Godzilla to, like, a really slow song like Darkness. And then he had his toxic relationship songs, then he have another banger with a great feature. And in the end, it was very hard to kind of listen all together because there was just so much diversity. It almost didn't feel like I was listening to the same album at times. And honestly, until I heard the song Little Engine with the little Alfred Hitchcock intro, I forgot that was the main focus of the album. So that was a huge, huge problem with me. The inconsistent theme really threw it off for me, and so I gave it a 4 out of 10. I just did not think the flow of the album was that good, and I thought it should have been a lot better considering he just came off an album like Kamikaze. Features, though. Okay, so the way we do features, we don't just do the features themselves, we do how the feature complemented Eminem, or the artist we're doing in that certain video. And all of the features complimented Eminem really well. I think Eminem actually stepped his game up when he knew he had a feature on, because he needed to show, like, yeah, I'm the best. Yeah, I'm better. This is my album. So guys like Royce da 5'9" popped off on this album. Ed Sheeran had a great chorus in those kind of nights. Juice WRLD, rest in peace. He had an awesome chorus in Godzilla. Young M.A. was a really surprising feature that we saw in there, but she did great in Unaccommodating. Anderson .Paak had a really, really nice feature in Lock It Up. Don Toliver, guys we never thought we'd see on an Eminem album. Crushed it. Black Thought from the Roots. Oh, he really stepped it up, you know? I had to give it a 10. I really had to give features a 10. Like, every single feature Eminem brought onto this album absolutely did their thing. Next is the artist performance. So, we don't just judge it on how well the artist did. We judge it on the stakes. We judge it on where this artist is in his career, what kind of things he rapped about, what kind of things he talked about that's going on in his life, how this album kind of like runs into his career. So obviously Eminem's got great flows and cadences. He's been doing it since before I was born, since like the early 2000s. But some of it's the same subject matter we've been hearing as of late. The toxic relationships we've heard ever since 2017 with Revival. Don't even get me started on all the toxic relationship songs in Revival. And there was quite a bit of toxic relationship songs and music to be murdered by. Songs like Never Love Again, songs like Farewell. Just songs that I would have been perfectly okay if I didn't hear, you know? Solo songs weren't as good without the features partially because they were the toxic relationship songs. I don't think he had any toxic relationship songs that had a feature. Except Darkness and Premonition. Those were the only songs I could really say that he stepped up his game without a feature. And oh my goodness, Eminem, when he does hooks, he has got to stop the harmonizing auto-tune. It is not attractive to listen to. Like songs like Farewell and Never Love Again and In Too Deep, those hooks aren't good with him singing, but they become like 100 times worse when he starts harmonizing. However, the few shots he took at MGK in this album, I thought were really funny and in really good taste, because there was this one bar, and I think it was Unaccommodating, where he goes like, "Is the war finished with MGK? Of course it is. I forgave him from his mortal sins and the Lord forgives," something like that. But it really just like, it put him on a pedestal that was really entertaining for me to listen to. And it also was a very good tie-in to the Rap Devil and the Rap God kind of feud thing that he had going on. So I really appreciated that. Yeah, I really enjoyed that album, but those were my issues with it. I gave his performance a 14 out of 20 because I really would have liked for him to just get some new subject matter, get some stuff flowing. I get it that he's one of the oldest rappers in the rap game, if not the oldest right now, and he's kind of running out of stuff to talk about, but I don't want to hear 3-4 toxic relationship songs on an album where I'm expecting him to just go off. Speaking of that, next category is bangers. Yes. How many bangers did he have on this album? Because the main reason, at least for me anyway, I listen to rap albums is because rap is that type of music, hip-hop is that type of music that just gets you going. It just gets you fired up. And, oh, did he bring it. Godzilla. Oh, my goodness. The third verse of Godzilla, oh, my goodness. It's got me just moving. If for y'all who didn't know, he broke his record for Rap God for most syllables in a minute with Godzilla. And if you haven't heard it, please just go listen to like the last 45 seconds of Godzilla. He goes off, and the thing is, he enunciates every single word, and you can understand what he's talking about. It's so good. And those kind of nights, that song gets me moving too, partially because of Ed Sheeran's hook, but Eminem's got some nice little bars here and there, especially with the punchlines I told you about. Lock It Up with Anderson .Paak's just a nice groove song. Just like late night car ride, you got Anderson .Paak with a nice little verse, and then Eminem comes in. Oh my goodness. Ya Ya with Royce da 5'9", and I think a few members of Slaughterhouse. Absolutely killed it. That was such a banger. That little boom bap beat that they had going on. I was in the car with my brother, actually. My brother's not really into rap, and I turned it on, and he was vibing. He loved it. So it was a really good one to listen to. Little Engine. It was a good song. I know he intended it to be a banger. I don't necessarily. It's not necessarily one of my favorite songs on the album, but he had good cadence. He had good flows. The only thing I really had a problem with was the hook. But other than that, he killed it. You Go Learn and No Regrets were like the slower bangers that I want to say. You Go Learn was just like, it's just the tempo, not really fast. You wouldn't really consider it a banger, but it's a nice song for you to put on and listen to. Royce da 5'9" absolutely kills it on that song. Eminem's got a great verse on verse 3. And No Regrets, just Don Toliver's vocals are crazy, and you never really expect Eminem to go off with a guy who's like signed to Travis Scott, since Eminem's so against auto-tune, but it worked out. So I said 10 out of 10 for bangers. There was a lot of opportunity in here, and for the most part, it paid off. Re-listenability. This is another 20-point category. The biggest thing with re-listenability is I need to be not only to be able to listen to it again from start to finish, but to want to listen to it again from start to finish. And the only problem I had with the re-listenability was the toxic relationship songs that just didn't fit at all. Those gave me huge Revival vibes, and I don't want to go back to Revival. Revival was not a good album. Just the constant like switch up of flow through the album. But other than that, I would legitimately listen to any single song in that album. Maybe except for Marsh, because the hook for Marsh was horrible. I didn't mention that in the auto-tune, like the harmonizing auto-tune hooks. That was the worst hook in the album. It was so bad. He probably needed a feature and to change it up, just because comparing yourself to a Martian in your hook is not very tasteful. But other than that, I've already listened to it probably 4 or 5 times just because I get drawn back to it because I really, really enjoyed it. I gave it a 17 out of 20 for that. Production. Eminem's production team is probably one of the best in the rap game, I'd say. He knows how his voice works, and he knows what kind of beats would work over his voice. But again, he's kind of trying to adapt. Just like in Kamikaze, he brought in some newer level producers. DA Got That Dope was in No Regrets and Those Kind of Nights, and those were probably 2 of the best beats on the album. Daewon Parker and Trevor Lawrence Jr. with Never Love Again and Lock It Up and Lil Engine. Lock It Up was one of the best beats on the album. Lil Engine had a great beat, but Eminem just had some issues with that. Never Love Again was bad song, but I thought it was an awesome beat. Luis Resto, Stepdad was a great beat, but again, the harmonizing was just too much for me. I enjoyed Stepdad, though, as a song. Marsh probably honestly had the best beat in the album, which was unfortunate because it also had the worst hook and probably the worst subject matter. And I Will just, oh my goodness, I Will was just such a powerful, like, booming beat. I love the 808s on that one. So the production for me gets a 10 out of 10. And emotion. So this is different from lyricism because emotion is more of how it impacted you. The words he used, how he delivered them in his cadence, in his flows. That, for me, is how I define emotion and how an artist becomes emotional in their songs. And if you're looking for emotion on this album, go look no further than Darkness. I have never really heard a rapper discuss things like gun control before, especially in a song like that where you listen to the first 2 verses and you're thinking it's about him going to a concert, him performing at a show, and then you realize it's about the Las Vegas shooter, which really hits you hard, and then the last 40 seconds is news clips over the production beat about school shootings and how they all kind of blend together like it's just nothing at that point. That really hits you hard, and it really makes you think about gun control, and it's just, honestly, it made me think, and that was the intention. It made me think about this country and how we're handling certain issues, and props to Eminem for that one. That honestly boosted the emotion score up way more than it should be, because the rest of the time it didn't hit. The Stale Topics ruined it for me. Never Love Again, In Too Deep, just were not songs I wanted to hear. Again, the toxic relationship songs, we've heard so many of them. Even in Kamikaze, which was an album I really, really enjoyed, there was three of them, excuse me. There was three of them in there, and I did not want to listen to them. But most of the time, man, just like the words he said just gave me chills. Like Leaving Heaven, when he was talking about like how he was glad his dad was dead and how he never got to meet him, but he wants to go to hell just to like flip him off. Like, wow, that was impactful to listen to. And then obviously you got the storytelling in Stepdad, where he talks about all the horrible things his stepdad did to him. So in turn, I gave it a 6 out of 10, just because of the Stale Topics that I can't get past. But he had a lot. He had some pretty good moments in here, and the overall score for Music to Be Murdered By is a 79 out of 100. Not one of his better albums, I should say, but definitely not his worst. He obviously brought his stuff. He came to play. He had the fastest verse ever, so props to him. It's sad to say that the rap god that we know is starting to decline, and we've known that since Revival, but it's always just sad to say and sad to hear whenever he drops out a new album. My least favorite songs, this is just my opinion. Don't take it personally if you enjoyed one of these songs. This is just my opinion. Worst songs, in my opinion, were Marsh, In Too Deep, Never Love Again, and Farewell. Just because 3 of those songs were relationship songs, and one of them was just horrible to listen to. I just didn't want to listen to it at all. The hook killed it for me. I couldn't focus because I was just waiting for the hook to come back, and it was horrible. My favorite songs. I have a lot of favorite songs that made it on to my playlist. Songs like No Regrets, songs like Lock It Up, All With Features, Godzilla, Premonition, Those Kind of Nights, Unaccommodating, You Gon' Learn, I Will, and Darkness also made it on there just because it's a vibe. It makes you think, and I really enjoy that with rap. Okay, so that is the end of this album review. If you liked it, feel free to subscribe or hit that like button. Please, if you haven't already, go check out our sports podcast. Thank you for watching. This has been The Last Word Music.